it was important for me to be a part of the Against the Grain monologue project because Daryl Grant has written these incredible monologues that have really tapped into the Black male experience. And as a Black actor, I don't get a lot of opportunities to be able to really delve into the humanity of a character and really get into it. And I like to use my art as advocacy. And I think what this project will do is definitely tap into the hearts and the minds of folks to see Black men differently. So if I can be a part of that change and Daryl calls, then I'm there for it. For me to portray Sergeant Jones while he's being profiled by police has so many meanings to me. In the conversation that Daryl and I were having, I was telling him that like this character came at the right time. Like I am at a place in my life where my relationship with my father is definitely changing and evolving and growing. And I'm a military brat. So my dad is a retired naval chief, right? So growing up with that experience of knowing my father right outside of the uniform, and now as I've gotten older to really recognize like my father in his military career, right? And he shared experiences and stories with me about the choices that he made to go into the military and even his experiences while in uniform, right? Of racism, of being denied access to certain things. And even as he has now retired from the military, of fighting for the resources and the assistance that he needs for the care, right? He gave his body, he gave his mind, he gave his spirit to the US Navy. And for him now to need the assistance and the care and feel as if he has to fight for it all again is so meaningful. But in this piece, the other meaning that I really wanted to like tackle that really meant a lot to me was this idea of protecting and serving, right? So we have Sergeant Jones who is protecting and serving his country. And when he comes home, he's treated like a second class citizen. And so historically, even when we look at Black men that have enlisted in the military, right, all the way back to, the beginning of time, that while in the military, in this uniform, while serving the country, they're treated one way. But when they come home to their respective communities, right, that they are treated as second class citizens. And one of the people I wanted to lift up as well, too, and embody in this piece is Sergeant Isaac Woodard. A lot of people have not heard about his story. If you haven't, definitely check it out. But it's exactly that, right? In 1946, he was a World War II Army vet and came home and faced police brutality, and they gouged his eyes out, which was one of the catalysts as well for the civil rights movement. So when I think about 1946 to where we are in 2024, and we as Black men are still being policed and punished just for the color of our skin, right? And even inside of this uniform where Sergeant Jones is saying, hey, look at my humanity, right? I'm a Black man in a nice car in a nice neighborhood, but do you see me, right? Do you see the uniform? Do you know that I protect and serve as well? How can I stand in the gap to change the narratives that are presented about us? Ooh, that is a really, really, really great question. And I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas, but the first one that comes to my mind is being vulnerable with one another. I think one of the emotions that is most common to most of us is anger, right? But we are multidimensional, multi-layered folks, and to be able to have the language now, right? And the resources and mental health um, really is an important component of it. But to have the language and to be able to express ourselves and be vulnerable with one another is so powerful, right? Of asking the why do you feel this way? Why did you respond like that? All of those things and calling each other out in love in mentorship, especially I would say intergenerationally, right? Because as we go into generations that are now living longer, right, with medical advancements, and we are in a more liberal world, right, where I could say that I'm a Black out gay man without risk of losing my job or losing my family or any of those things, that I want to sit at the feet of elders that have experienced life before me, because there ain't nothing new under the sun, right? It's just packaged a little bit differently. The veneer is a little bit different, but I want to hear the stories. I want to know the history of the folks that I stand on the side of. And especially now when there's so many conversations and I get it from young folks about like, you're old, right? And I'm 37. And I'm like, I remember being that age and thinking that I knew everything, that I knew it all. But there were so many elders, and I call them my angels in my life, that guided me and um, taught me the ropes and showed me where to go, where to stay away from. And they really stood in the gap for me to say, hey, you're important, you're more than whatever that the world tells you that you are, because sometimes that affirmation doesn't always come from our blood family, it comes from our chosen family. So, really standing in the gap is something that they did for me that I look forward to doing. And last, I would definitely say creating your art, right? Like I said before, art has the ability to tap into people's hearts and minds and change them. And so, a lot of those narratives that are out there, if we have the ability to create our own content, like this incredible project that Daryl is doing, or even in our music, right? There are so many artists out now that are talking about Black gay love and relationships and those experiences, right? And what does that mean? How does that help us as well? But literally, we have these phones in our hands 24/7 where we can pick up and we can create our art to change those narratives, to shift policy in the way that folks think about us and see our humanity, right? So I think that those are just some of the ways, and I say it as well as a check to myself to make sure that I'm living up to my own advice and I'm not just saying those things. So yes, let's change the world, y'all.
Are you sure this will help? Just talk about what happened that night. All right, here goes. As I was coming down Peachtree, I saw the officer get behind me. He turned his lights on right away, and I pulled over. I knew the expectation, so I pulled out my license and I handed it to him as soon as he approached the vehicle. Now, this guy should not be on the streets because right from the jump, he started yelling and being disrespectful. Now, I don't remember everything he said. I just knew I had to take control of the situation. So I said, look, look at me. Look at me. My hands is up. I have no weapons on me. Calm down. Please, calm down. I just want to take the time to talk to you. Is that okay? I'm a black man in a nice car and in this neighborhood. So I knew you were going to pull me over. But do you see the uniform that I'm wearing? Do you see in the documents that I submitted that I'm actually First Sergeant Larry Jones of the U.S. Army? Also, in that moment where I was unlawfully stopped, I wanted to take the time to share with the officer why I serve this country. I told him, I serve this country for my younger brothers, my cousins, my nieces, my nephew, to have the ability to be and live in a world that's much more different than the world that I grew up in. I serve this country to pay for my family's expenses and to help pay for medical expenses for my aging parents. I serve for you to work and have the freedom to pull me over because you were taught that a black man in a luxury car has to be doing something illegal. It's hard for me to show up and put my life on the line, to serve a country that don't serve me. It's hard for me to show up and have belief in a system that was not built for me. I then looked at the officer and I said, as I sit here with my hands up and you have your hand secured around your weapon, I want to ask you why you serve. Do you serve out of fear? Do you serve for power? Or do you serve to enact your version of justice on Black people that you feel need to be policed and punished? I see you loosening your hand on your gun. How about you take your hands off of it completely? Have I said nothing or done nothing to show you that I'm not an actual threat to you? Man, I just came home to see my family after being deployed for 2 years. Man, I just came from being passed around from department to department fighting for the resources and the assistance that I need. I just got back from submitting yet another damn form. He then looked at me and he said, everything checked out and I was free to go. But before I left, I had one more thing left to say. I told him that the system has fucked over the both of us. I told him they gave you a patrol car and a weapon to do the type of bullshit that you just did with me. My. What a world we live in. I then asked him for his name and his badge number.